Republican, or any politician for that matter, would back Trump. Here is where I will defend the situation. Before you call me a monster and an animal for defending the situation, I will say this. The cop was following the procedure.
Never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. You Made It Political. As the mass exodus out of Democrat states continue, so do their congressional seats. Republican states are picking up seats like a boss, while New York, California, and other Dem states are getting absolutely crushed. And that means they will have less representation and less voting power in D.C. come the 2022 primaries. What does this mean for the primaries and ultimately the 2024 presidential election? Well, we're going to get into all of that right now. But if there's anything that's come out of the absolute diabolical situation when it comes to these Democratic, overrun, overreached, insane states, it's that their loss of congressional seats are the reward for their stupidity. So there is hope, people. There's hope that we're going to actually turn this thing around. The red wave is coming. It is coming quick. Let's get into the show and see exactly what this all means leading up to the 22 primaries. So, for those of you who aren't aware, New York State, we all knew there was a mass exodus from New York State. We all knew that people were leaving. They're heading down south. There's also a mass exodus from California. Everyone's leaving these Democratic states because of the ridiculous policy, the governors, the lockdowns, just all the stupid shit that's been going on. People have had enough and they're out. So where are they going? Well, they're going down south. They're going to Florida. They're going to Texas. They're going to the Carolinas. They're going to Georgia, Tennessee, pretty much everywhere but the northeastern Democrat states. So they're all leaving, and we knew that this was definitely going to play a role as far as our congressional seats were concerned. When the population decreases, you run the risk of losing congressional seats. Those congressional seats may lost in a Republican district or a Democratic district. Right now, we don't know. The new lines need to be redrawn, and depending on where those lines are drawn or what counties those lines are drawn through will pretty much determine whether we pick up Republican seats or Democrat seats. But the key point to note here is that in Democratic deep blue states like New York, losing a seat, there's a very high probability that it's going to be a Democrat seat. And when you look at states like Florida, Texas, and other heavily red states, them picking up seats, well, the probability is also going to be that they pick up red or Republican congressional members come the 2022 primaries. So the statistics and the odds of losing Democrat seats in Democrat-run states are high, and gaining Republican congressional seats in Republican-run states are also high. So New York State came just 89 residents short of maintaining all of its congressional districts. So in New York State, we have 27. We're now going to lose one. Hopefully it's going to be AOC, and we're going to go down to 26 districts. Census Bureau official says it will now lose one of its House seats ahead of the 2022 midterm elections. So this is very key. The House of Representatives, the Democrats only have a 10-seat lead. Their lead on votes is even more narrow than that. I believe it's at 2 now, which is the worst it's been since the 1940s. So this will play a huge role in how we vote based on our representation, as well as the 2024 presidential elections due to the Electoral College now being influenced or impacted by the congressional districts. So we've lost a seat in New York, and it sucks because it can go either way in these blue states. That seat that we're losing could very well be a Republican seat that we're losing, which could make matters worse here in our local state. In California, it could very well be a Republican seat that they lost. But listen, this is the way I look at it. I am happy to lose that seat based on... We're having a little bit of a tech. I'm happy to lose that seat in New York if it's going to be for the greater good of the country. So, whatever. New York's already a lost cause unless we get a Republican governor in office. So, the way I look at it is that I'm willing to sacrifice the states for the greater good of the country because I'm cheering on now these other states. Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, Oregon, Texas, that have all picked up congressional seats, while New York, California, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania have all lost. So what exactly is going on here? Let's take a look at this, and we'll see what we've done here, or what it's all looking like. So according to CNN article, and what I love about this is CNN even has a very damper outlook on this whole thing. And you know things are bad when CNN even admits things are bad. So we all know New York State's lost a seat. Who else has lost a seat? Well, a Democratic stronghold in Congress, which we all know, they have a 10-seat lead in Congress, which is why we can't win anything. And we're getting crushed right now in Washington because we've lost Congress, we've lost the House, we've lost the Senate, although the Senate is neck and neck, so that can easily come back our way. Harris now breaks the tie with every vote that she puts in. Obviously, she's going to side with the Democrats. So we're already at neck and neck in the Senate. The Senate is an easy, very easy, doable win in 2022. It's not going to take much to take back control of the Senate. But with everything that's going on now in the House of Representatives and congressional seats being lost in Democrat seats and gained in Republican seats, there's a very good chance that we can see that margin narrow substantially to the point where we even end up winning the House as well. And then we're right back in the game. Then Biden is a lame duck president until he rides out the rest of this term. We know Biden's not going to run another term. I mean, the guy doesn't even know he's president now. Nobody likes Harris, and I'm going to prove that in just a second. The majority of voters don't think Harris is going to be a good president. They're already done with her before she's even stood a chance. So things, as dismal as things look right now, this just goes to show how quickly the whole thing can turn around. So we've got New York joins California, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia in losing a congressional seat. So again, California, New York, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia losing congressional seats. That's 7 seats right there. If we take a look at the map, the House of Rep into the interactive map, we can see here the Democrats have a lead, 222 to Republicans 212. That's only a 10-point lead. They lose 7. That's catastrophic for them. So how many are we gaining? How many are the Republicans gaining? So we know the Democrats are losing 7 seats. What are the Republicans picking up? Well, the Republicans got Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, and Oregon will each gain 1 seat. I love how CNN forgot to talk about Texas here. Texas is actually picking up 2 seats. Why CNN fails to leave Texas out is beyond me. See, they're very sneaky, CNN. They know things are going to shit for them in the first place, but they omit facts all the time, and they fail to include Texas's 2-seat gain. So that's a 7-seat gain right there. So this is a monumental shift. Monumental shift. in the political spectrum when it comes to Republicans versus Democrats. So us picking up seven seats, that's 219 right there. You need 218 to take control. 219. So that affords us the risk of not picking up all of them. Just because we gain seats doesn't mean they're all going to be Republican seats. And just because the Democrats lose seats doesn't mean they're going to all be Democrat seats. But with such a massive shift, 7 down on the Democrats, 7 up on the Republicans, there's a lot of room here for us to really kind of hone in here and potentially take back control of the House. And this is the reason the Democrats are trying to hijack Washington, D.C. right now and turn it into a state. They need those two. Pelosi knows she's screwed. She knows this is the worst lead they've ever had. Every year, this margin in the House of Representatives gets more narrow and narrow. So they're freaking out. And what do the Democrats do when they start freaking out? They rig the system. Surprise, surprise. They're doing exactly what they did leading up to the 2020 election. Shit, we're going to lose. We don't stand a chance. Let's start changing all the state laws. Let's open up mail-in balloting to the world, regardless of all the rules that are in place, and let's rig the system. So they're trying to do that once again in D.C., which we know is very Democrat heavy. They're claiming, well, it's not fair to have taxation without representation. Why all of a sudden, Nancy? D.C.'s been a freaking colony for hundreds of years. Why all of a sudden, right now, this year, are you trying to push D.C. to a state like without even consulting with the rest of the country? Because they know they are losing. Their days are numbered in Washington. The Democrats, they are numbered. People are pissed off. We all know that. All we hear is doom and gloom when it comes to what's going on in Washington. At least if you're a Republican, it's all doom and gloom. But what they're not telling us is how much of an opportunity we now have going into 2022. And these seats, this monumental shift in congressional seats, is going to mean the difference between Republicans taking the House or the Democrats. It's going to be that close. So there's a lot going on here. For those of you who are just joining us, New York's lost a seat. California, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, 7 congressional seats out the window. The Democrats are sitting at 220, 222. They lose 7. Takes them below their 218. Republicans pick up 7. Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, Oregon, Texas 2. That's 7. They go from a 212 number up to 219. So it's looking good. But like I said, it doesn't mean it's going to be 100% Republican pickups, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be 100% Democratic losses. But there's more to this than just picking up congressional seats. And this is where people in New York fail to understand just how detrimental losing this seat really is. Because determining how many representatives each state gets in Congress, the census also informs how billions of dollars in federal funding is spent. Schools, roads, and other important things in your community gain or lose funding over the next 10 years. 10 years. This is a huge problem. So all these Democrats who thought they were smart by voting in these idiots and then driving, whether it's Republicans or moderate Democrats, out of the state, they thought they were being smart. They thought, hey, we got control of New York State. Yeah, we're crushing it. Cuomo's a god. Who cares? He just got $50 billion in from Biden to bail us out. Yeah, you moron. Our taxes are now about to go through the roof. Cuomo, no Republican can stand him, and I'm starting to think the Democrats, or at least the moderates, can't stand him either. So because of the insane and very stupid decisions that New York and California and other dictator blue state have done over the past few years are now finally catching up to them. People are leaving, and so are their seats. And guess what? So is their funding. Senate Majority, and I love how Chuck Schumer tries to paint this as, oh, don't worry. Remember, look at Georgia. Georgia picked up a couple Democratic seats in the Senate. Anything's possible. I don't think anything's possible after the shit show that the Democrats have just put us through. I think that people have already learned their mistake. And I don't think you're going to see the same voting mistakes that people made in 2020, in 2022. Definitely not in 2024. So Chuck Schumer, obviously a New York Democrat, said Monday evening last night that he hadn't yet seen and studied the census, but maintained that Democrats are doing very well over voters from traditionally Republican states. We've got to continue to do that. He said, we won in states like Georgia and Arizona, which last instance you would have said are Republican states. So yeah, anything's possible. I know Chuck Schumer's trying to paint it out like, well, don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. There's still a chance. But I don't believe people in these Republican or these previous Republican states like Arizona and Georgia are going to make the same dumb mistakes again. So I think things are on the up for us. I think that not only are we gaining seats here, and there's going to be a possible shift from all the Republican states that are picking up these seats, and that we're going to see Democrats, lose seats as far as the next election is concerned. I also think, in addition to the congressional shift, we're also going to have a lot of people who voted blue last time start to vote blue-red as well. Maybe even giving us a greater opportunity just in case we don't nail 7 out of 7 on the gain or lose 7 out of 7 on the loss. I'm hoping Americans are going to wake up by this point and are going to think, you know what? I'm done with this radical progressive crap. I'm going red this time. In addition to the already dominant red counties who we know are just going to vote red. So a lot of this plays a factor into the equation. And hopefully, as the Democrats continue to screw up, whether it's with the southern border, whether it's with raising taxes, that more moderates on the left will start to reconsider seriously the direction they want to take this country and then vote appropriately. Let's head back to the Keyboard Warrior Cam and see what the American people have to say. We'll start on CNN because, after all, we know how liberal and left-wing CNN runs and its viewers. But what's nice to know is that a lot of these guys are just as sick of the nonsense as Newsmax or Fox viewers might be. And that's very encouraging to know. Chuck said, people are leaving New York because of high taxes orchestrated by the Democratic Party. You have nobody to blame but yourselves who voted for these people. It's true. You guys just screwed your state. You absolutely screwed it. You're the ones who are going to be hanging out here with higher taxes. You're losing a seat. You're losing funding. You guys can hang around and watch this liberal shithole go down in flames because the rest of us are gone. The only reason I'm sticking out is because I'm going to see if we can get Lee Zeldin in for Congress or for governor in 2022. If we can knock Cuomo out, I might consider sticking around. Cuomo gets reelected or some other Democratic numpty, we're out of here. We're not going to stick around. So you guys can enjoy the insanity that your Democratic governors and lawmakers and legislators continue to ram down your throats. And have fun with that high tax bill. I'll be down in Florida on the beach writing everything off. So Barry says it's going to start happening more and more often because people are moving out of New York and California due to outrageous taxes, outrageous regulations, and outrageous liberal policies. So we all know again, whether it's, I always used to say, I said, I always thought Democrats were the ones who were leaving the state. I thought, these, they're not. It's Republicans. All right. Republicans are leaving the state. Everybody keeps saying, well, Democrats are coming down here. And I don't know why Democrats would leave New York State, to be honest. I mean, they keep voting for Cuomo. They applaud every insane policy that the Democrat lawmakers throw our way. They love this vaccine passport. So I don't know why they would want to go down south. That doesn't make sense to me. The moderates, sure, but wouldn't it be a lot cheaper to just change your party affiliation? So at first I thought Democrats are leaving. Awesome. We're going to take back New York State. And people are like, dude, Democrats aren't leaving. Republicans are leaving. And the more I researched into that, I realized, yes, Republicans are the ones leaving. So as these southern states gain more Republican influence, it only makes sense to me that they will get stronger on a congressional district level, which leads me to believe these votes are going to start swinging their way in the 2022 primaries, leaving the Democratic states just to suffer even more on their own. And then ultimately, yes, when the liberals, when the left realize, oh God, we have made a horrible mistake. Well, by then, we're already all gone. They're sitting here in New York State as it goes bankrupt, which we all know it is, even though Cuomo got his $50 billion bailout, which means nothing, by the way. It just means that New York is propped up on borrowed money. Doesn't mean they're cash rich, which is also another insane accusation that a lot of Democrats make. Well, Democrat-run states are so much more cash rich than Republican-run states. Look at Republican states. Most of them don't have money. No, the reason they don't have money is because they don't keep borrowing it based on their stupid decisions and getting themselves into really more debt. Okay, New York State owes that money back to the federal government. Just because Cuomo propped us up on borrowed money does not mean we're cash rich. If you go to the bank and you borrow 100 grand, you're not 100 grand cash rich. You owe that bank. You're 100 grand in debt plus interest. So I laugh when people try to tell me that Democrat states are so much better off financially, because that's complete bullshit. We're not. We're broke. We're on borrowed money. We got to pay that back at some point. And guess who's going to pay it back? You are. Cuomo's not paying it back out of his own pocket. And they're going to pay it back in the form of higher taxes levied on all of us. Well, you, because like I said, I'll write it off because I'm a business owner, and the only people who ever get screwed when taxes are raised are the middle class, W-2 employees who can't write anything off. And I've been warning you guys this from the beginning. But no, you're happy with your stupid your just ridiculous vaccine passport, and you're masking up and all your other ridiculous, stupid rules that you're happy to welcome on board. Well, I hope you like the high taxes that are about to come with all that. Sandra says, Americans need to use their choice to vote and fill out a census to make America better, or don't complain. Remember, guys, this all comes from the census. If you didn't fill out that census and you're pissed off that New York State's now losing the congressional seat, that's your own dumb fault. I fill out that census every single year because I want to make sure that we don't put our state in the bind it's now in. That's why we have to take these censuses. Is very important. So she just said filling out your census is almost as equally important as voting, because that census tells the state the population. That population then dictates how many seats we have. Well, now we're about to lose a seat, and if it's drawn or the district lines are redrawn, that cuts out a heavily Democratic populated county, well, then we're going to pick up a Republican seat. So don't complain if you didn't sit there and fill out your census. It's sad less than half Americans vote. And why can't you fill out a census? Because the government not tracking you it's to help our cities. It's basically saying you don't want to fill out a census because you don't want the government to track you. Listen, if you have a cell phone, the government's tracking you. Okay? So that's a stupid reason. I mean, technology, we can't go anywhere today without being tracked. Fill out the census, people. Susan says, do do you all realize there are red districts in these states? Why are people assuming it'll be blue House seats lost? And I've already tackled that, and she's right. Susan's absolutely right. Just because we've lost a seat here doesn't mean that it's going to be a Democratic seat. And just because we've gained seats in Republican states doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a Republican gain or Republican seat gain. But the odds are a lot higher because of how heavily Republican populated these states are down south. Jacob says, New York to lose a House seat. Dear God, let it be AOC. She's about useless. Please, God. I'm right there with you, Jacob. Absolutely, 100%. I hope to God AOC's the district to go. Somehow, based on these sneaky Democrats, I doubt it's going to be. I doubt AOC is going to be the one to lose it. We're not going to get into how the district lines are drawn. Maybe we can do that in another episode, and I can bring on a New York Assembly director to discuss that with you guys. But today we're not going to get into that. But fingers crossed, it's a district like AOC. Corky says, this is exactly why the left insisted on counting illegal aliens. Again, the left in their sneaky freaking, let's go change all the laws and rig the system bullshit. They do it all the time. They did it in the 2020 election. They're doing it with Washington, D.C. right now. And look, they've done it with trying to bum rush all the illegal aliens into this country. So, Corky, great point. This is exactly why the left insisted on counting illegal aliens. Maintaining or gaining congressional seats by counting non-citizens is foreign meddling in our elections and our government. It is foreign meddling. Why does everybody but Republicans get to meddle in the elections? These Democratic idiots raised hell for 4 years accusing us of meddling elections, or the Russians getting involved in the elections in 2016. They wouldn't shut the hell up about it. And all they've done is meddle in the elections. And this is another classic example of them doing it again. See, they're already trying to rig the game. They're already trying to get their dirty little hands into our system. Diane D says they're always cheating. Absolutely. They're always cheating. Bobby said I'm looking at comments, guys, and I love that they're coming in. Thank you. Bobby says the biggest problem with the country right now is the fatherless generation, children growing up without their fathers due to divorce. Neither Democrats nor Republicans are doing a damn thing about it. Absolutely plays a big, big role in morals and ethics. We've lost our way, America, and Republicans are sitting here letting the Democrats get away with it. Joel says, I don't want to leave my state. I want the a-holes in government to leave out beautiful home. No, nobody wants to leave these states. Nobody wants to leave the state. Guys, I'm sticking around. I'm fighting. I want to get Zeldin in. And I think if we all just pull together, that there's a very good chance that we can actually turn this nonsense around. I honestly believe that. I know I have my very shitty negative days. Who doesn't living in New York State? You know, this pandemic and Biden has really gotten to all of us. And I think when we see things like 7 states losing a seat, 7 Democrat states losing a seat, New York, California, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, all losing seats, and states like Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, Oregon, Texas picking up 2 seats, 7-seat gain, that it restores hope in our fate of the country. Eugene says this census, now here we go with the fraud. Okay, here the Democrats crying again. We knew we weren't going to get through this without the Democrats crying that the census was rigged, or by bringing Trump into this. I knew somewhere somebody was going to blame Trump for an inaccurate or fraudulent census count. And here it is. Eugene says this census wasn't properly carried out. I know there's a pandemic, which has nothing to freaking do with anything, but Trump's administration screwed with the process as well. This should have a one-time only redo. What a freaking bunch of idiots. I mean, seriously, guys, I went online and did my census. I got my letter. I went online. Me, my wife, my son, I hit submit. I was done. It's very simple. I don't know how you can, like, blame Trump for this situation. I guess Trump pushed to end the census early. I'm sure he had a very good reason, but of course, it's all Trump's fault. Corky says the less influence New York and California has, the better for the rest of America. And that is exactly what I was talking about earlier. It sucks we're going to lose a seat. At first, I was like, God damn it. We're going to lose more power in New York State. We're going to become even deeper blue. But you know what? At this point, I'm rather to accept that sacrifice for the better good of America. If those Republican seats pick up the gains they need, if we take a look at the map here, Democrats have 222, Republicans have 212. If we can pick up those 7 seats and the Democrats can lose their control, I'm happy to take one for the team here in New York. It doesn't mean we can't keep fighting to get a Republican governor in place, because I think that will be very key to now slowly shifting that deep blue insanity more towards a Republican patriotic run or mentality. I think if we can start at the top, get a Republican governor in, get Cuomo out, that maybe slowly we can start to dismantle the corruption and the complete draconian policies that our lawmakers have put in place. It's almost like cutting off the dragon's head. That would be Cuomo. If we can just do that, I think we'll start to see the rest of the monster throughout New York State get dismantled. So it starts at the top. In the meantime, I'm willing to sacrifice a seat here in New York for the greater good of the country. So let's head over to Fox News now. I want to see and look at Fox News' take on this. So we've already looked at CNN. You got Chuck Schumer over on CNN being all optimistic about it. Oh, don't worry about that. Look what happened in Georgia and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think people are pissed off at themselves for what happened in Georgia. And I think Republicans are going to take a hard look at themselves and make very serious decisions going into 2022 after all of the shit show and mess this Biden administration has just put us through. So again, looking at Fox, Democrat-leaning states have lost House seats, which is great, and Republican-leaning seats have gained them. So census sweepstakes. Now here, Fox finally admits. I love how CNN left out the facts that Texas picked up 2. They only focused on the states that picked up 1 seat. They didn't discuss Texas. And of course, Fox is going to say, wait a second, you idiots forgot Texas. Texas actually gained 2 seats. I love the competition between these two sites. Whenever you read something on CNN, you know half the time it's a lie because they omit facts. If you really want to fill in the gaps, go over to Fox News. I mean, I would tell everybody, Democrat and Republican, to do that, because CNN, they just freaking lie about everything. Bobby says both parties are full of broken promises. Bobby, it's sad that they are right now. And if we can just get younger, more fresh and aggressive non-politicians into Congress, then I really think we can start to turn this thing around. I think, look at Lauren Boebert in Colorado. She's great, non-politician. Yes, Ted Cruz is a politician. He's one of the few that actually fight for our rights. He's a constitutionalist at the end of the day. Matt Gaetz, yes, he's a lawyer, but he's a fighter. Marjorie Taylor Greene, non-politician. I posted on my wall. You guys got to check it out. Her mask of her there on the House floor with her mask on that says, this mask is as useless as Joe Biden. I'm going to pull that up for you guys right now, because these are the type of people that we need in Congress. And I think if we can start to shift and get more non-politicians in Washington, that we will absolutely see the lies get taken down. We will see the corruption come to an end. So yesterday I found a picture of this. Marjorie Taylor Greene, oh my God, is the best picture I've ever seen. Marjorie Greene has officially hit legend status. Here is Marjorie on the House floor, rocking her. This mask is as useless as Joe Biden. I freaking love it. It is, and that is who we need fighting right now. That these are the type of people that we need in Washington. Non-politicians, patriots, conservatives fighting to turn this country around. But she can't do it on her own. She can't be the only one to do it. We need to really focus on a local level. And I think that this is what we're going to be able to do with this, with these congressional districts gaining and picking up seats. Let's go over to the article and see what Fox has to say. So the U.S. Census Bureau, for those of you who are just joining us, we're talking about congressional districts. We've had Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, Oregon, Texas all pick up seats. Texas picked up 2, that's 7 seats. And that is going to bump, if we took all of them, 212 Republicans in the House up to 219. We need 218 to take control. And if the Democrats were to lose all 7, we see them lose control of the House. Again, it's very unlikely that we pick up 100% and they lose 100%. But the fact that there's such a shift is a very, very good sign. And that shift, as we can see, what makes this thing so exciting is that the gains are all in Republican states. The losses are all in Democratic states. So something to really look forward to as we get ready and geared up. And it all started with the census. And if you didn't fill that out, think twice, because it only comes around. We only redraw district lines every so often. And we're now going to be able to either reap the rewards or suffer those consequences for years to come, because people may or maybe not fill out their census. So the U.S. Census Bureau on Monday announced that 6 states, mostly in the South and mountain regions, would gain seats in the U.S. House of Representatives based on updated population data results, while 7 states were set to lose 1 seat apiece. Hence the reason we come to 7 and 7. Because Texas, out of the 6 states, gained 2 seats. And each of the 7 Democrat-run states lost a seat. Texas will gain 2 seats, the most out of any United States state. Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, and Oregon each gained 1 seat. Texas and Florida both fell short of expectations. So, on the other hand, 7 states, including California, Illinois, Michigan, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, again, they were all set to lose states. So this is huge for us, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the shift in power as the Democrats very, very quickly lose their lead right now. And every year, their lead diminishes. Every year, that lead in the House gets less and less. And we already know the Senate. I mean, come on. The Senate's a done deal. The Senate's got to be a done deal. No way are any Republican, any rhino who voted against their party in 2020, no freaking way they're going to do it again. Because I don't care how pissed off or annoyed with Donald Trump you are, or you were. This is just straight up anti-American now, what's going on in Washington. And I don't think they're going to make that same mistake again. So I think we got the Senate, and I think there's a very good chance we can get the House. The House is already down to its worst lead since 1940 as far as voting is concerned. They only have the House by a 2-vote lead. The worst since 1940. So it's coming. We're making a comeback, slowly but surely. And look, if it only took 2 years, that's the best thing that could have happened for this country. I mean, that's the worst thing that could happen for this country. If it only took 2 years for America to wake the hell up and take back power. So this shit here doesn't help. This is why Democrats are leaving. And this is why there is a mass exodus right now. Because you have states like California or like Connecticut, I don't know what they're thinking. But Connecticut, we got this transgender issue going on with sports, right? We all know about the transgender sporting issue. We have these transgender athletes, okay? These men who now want to be women and want to compete in women's sports. We know how unfair this is. We know it's going to destroy college women's sports. It's going to destroy high school women's sports because you're going to have a bunch of dudes now playing on these women's teams. And we know who the hell's going to want to stay in these states. If you have a daughter who's now playing soccer against 250-pound Kathy, who's about to take out the entire women's soccer team in one swipe on the way to scoring a goal, are you going to want your daughter playing in that state with this kind of unfairness happening? So this is just ridiculous. Nobody's going to want to stick around for this bullshit. Nobody's going to want to have their children grow up having 300-pound men on all jacked up play on these women's teams. So a federal judge in Connecticut just dismissed a lawsuit that would have had barred transgender athletes from competing against girls in high school sports. I don't know what they're thinking, okay? Steroids is illegal for a reason, okay? A man playing on a women's team, I don't care if you call yourself a woman. You're still a dude. You're still jacked like a dude, okay? And we're going to see a lot more failure, mediocre men saying, you know what? I really want a shot in sports, so maybe I'll just turn into a chick for a little bit. I mean, I can identify whatever I want, right? I'm Matt today. I could be Martha tomorrow. I'm Martha now. Who are you to tell me I'm not Martha? I'm going to go play on the women's soccer team and dominate and then get a full ride scholarship to North Carolina because I just destroyed the entire women's team. So it's not fair. And people aren't going to stick around in these Democratic-run states to deal with this insanity. I understand we're trying to create equality here, but let's be freaking sensible about it. Let's not be so stupid in how we get to equality. Let's not destroy states and entire sectors over it. So you're going to see even more of an exodus in these Democrat-run states because of crap like this. So I'm always very curious to see what people think about this. Am I the only one who thinks this is insane? Am I the only one who wants to bail because of the shit? I don't think so. Chris Davis says, so if I have been training my whole life and been competing as a man, but one day wake up and identify as handicapped, it's perfectly fine for me to compete in the Special Olympics? Good point, Chris. Very good point. No, it's not. The same reason I can't wake up tomorrow and decide I'm going to be Macy and go play women's soccer. I can't choose what gender team to try out just because I'm feeling one gender one day, and if I don't make the men's team, I'm going to all of a sudden switch to being a chick so I can make the women's team. Because that's the level of insanity we're about to reach here, people. It's about to get that outrageous and disgusting. Diane says the war on women continues in the upside down, inside out world of leftist lunacy. Why are so many women in politics so silent and not defending the daughters of America on any level? Morally corrupted society. Have you guys realized that? The white women are probably the most screwed out of all of this political nonsense. All of it. I mean, white men are totally screwed. I mean, our resumes aren't even going to come close to the top of a pile now because of this equity business that Washington's ramming down corporate America's throat. So if you're a white male, become an entrepreneur. Don't even consider going into corporate America. You have no chance. If you're a white female, you stand a little bit better of a chance in corporate America. Maybe. That's if we don't let the 20 million illegal immigrants come storming through the border and take all their jobs. But where they're really getting screwed is in women's sports. These women rely on these scholarships. They need that scholarship money to get into these schools. And now all of a sudden I'm going to decide to come along and take their spot. just because, I didn't make the men's team. So women are getting screwed in this. Your daughters, your granddaughters getting absolutely destroyed. But we don't have to take it. We don't have to sit here in these Democrat-run states. We're just going to go to a Republican state where they've barred transgenders from competing in women's sports. It's very simple. I'm not going to stick around for this crap. Again, this is why we are losing congressional seats. We're losing them in Democratic-run states. We're picking them up in Republican-run states. So another little glimpse of hope that I have leading up to, not only just leading up to the 2022 primaries, but also the 2024 election. There's no way Biden's getting reelected. Okay. We all know that. We know this guy's got early onset Alzheimer's. We know his days are numbered. But what about Harris? Everyone's like, well, shit, if Biden goes, we get Harris for the next 4 years. I wouldn't be so sure about that, people, because according to the majority of voters who have been polled here, a majority of voters say that Vice President Harris is not qualified to be president. And are you surprised? Look at her handling of the southern border. She's been an absolute joke. Absolute joke. So Harris has got nothing done. The only thing she's done is played Biden's little puppet, or Pelosi and Schumer and whoever else is pulling the strings at the top. She's playing puppet with all these, or she's being played like a puppet, not really getting anything done. She hasn't even been to the southern border yet. She's done nothing to help with any real policy since Biden's taken over. She hasn't done shit for coronavirus. That was all Trump's doing. None of them have done anything. So not only have the Biden administration done nothing, which includes Harris, she's been even more equally irrelevant and silent. So we see here, majority of voters say VP Harris is not qualified to become president. So let's take a look at that. What exactly does all this mean? Who are these people that say VP Harris is not qualified to become president? So majority of likely voters, that's good. We've polled likely voters. Trust me, they aren't polling me. Okay. They're not polling Republicans. They're not polling Trumpers or conservatives. They're polling likely voters who have said and have an unfavorable impression of Vice President Kamala Harris. Republican voters especially are doubtful Harris is qualified to be president. Only 25% of GOP voters believe Harris is qualified to become president, compared to 80% of Democrats and 36% of unaffiliated voters. Of likely voters overall, 51% have an unfavorable impression of Harris, with 43% having a very unfavorable impression of the vice president. Not only that, but 50% said Harris is not qualified to become president, including 41% who said she is not at all qualified. The survey found that 46% of likely voters have a favorable impression of Harris, including 28% who have a very favorable view of her. 28% is not going to get the job done, people. Not even close. Now, this is interesting. Female voters, 48%, only have a slightly more favorable view of Harris than men. So only slightly. So this isn't a girl power thing going on anymore. Okay? They think she sucks. Only 48% have a slightly more favorable view of Harris than men, 44%. But women, 32%, are more likely than men, 24%, just say they have a very favorable impression. So not looking good for Harris. It was no surprise President Joe Biden's strongest supporters expressed the highest opinion of Harris, obviously. Among voters who strongly approve of Biden's job performance as a president, 94% have a favorable impression of Harris. There's your radical, far left crazies who have no idea what the hell is really going on in Washington. These are people who are just voting based on what their friends told them, or they're voting because they just see red rainbow flags and BLM flags everywhere, and they automatically associate the success of America to a LGBTQ plus or a BLM flag. They don't really dig into the policies, which is starting to annoy the shit out of me right now. And that is why we are in this position to begin with. And yesterday I had enough, and this is what I posted. I said, if you're not into politics, do the rest of us a favor and stop voting. You're destroying this country by throwing darts with a blindfold on. Bobby says, I hope that Candace Owens runs for president. She will have my vote. Bobby, I'll be very honest with you. I'm not sold on Candace as president. I don't think she stands a chance, to be honest. Not because I love Candace Owens, guys. She's amazing. I just think we need to see Candace in Congress first to really prove herself that she's really in it for causing change within the political spectrum. And right now, I think she's enjoying so much success and fame and money from being a sidebar political influencer that I think if she stepped foot into running for any sort of office, she would lose her voice. I think she would get crushed if she ran for president, to be honest. I think if she comes in as Congress and proves to everybody, because remember, she only has so much of a fan base in the public figure world. She needs the moderate Republicans to be on her side too. And she'll gain their support if she comes and runs for Congress, wins, and causes change. If she gets out there and fights every single day to turn this country around, then yes, I believe she stands a very good chance, probably first as a VP, and then who knows, maybe somebody like Candace Owens could truly be America's first black women president. So that's my view on Candace. I think she needs a lot more experience. And I think that with some congressional experience, she might be able to get the job done. She's even kind of toyed around with the idea of running for governor. I don't think that's smart for New York State right now. We need somebody who's already been in Congress, somebody who's already has a voting history, somebody who's gone out there and proved themselves and has a track record, which is why I like Lee Zeldin so much out of New York or Long Island. I believe he's the congressman for the first, I know he is for the first congressional district. I believe that's Long Island or something, one of those boroughs or one of those areas there in New York City. So I think we need somebody like him to come in who stands a chance. This is going to be a monstrous fight going up against Cuomo. It's going to be the hardest thing New York's ever done, taking down Cuomo. But I do believe that if we all rally together, the guy did raise $2.5 million in 10 days. In his first day, Lee Zeldin raised $2.5 million. The last governor race, the second best candidate to Cuomo, which was like not even freaking just so far apart, he only raised something like $1.8 million in his entire campaign. Lee Zeldin's already in his first 10 days smashed that number and raised $2.5 million. So I do think that Zeldin is off to a phenomenal start, and that if we all keep our finger on the pulse and keep voting in the right local elected officials, we could slowly start to take back control of New York State. Maybe. But the key thing to remember here is that it's not all doom and gloom, people. These congressional shifts in seats is monumental for the success of America right now. And that if we keep fighting and we keep spreading patriotism throughout the United States of America, that even the moderate Democrats are going to start to say, you know what? That does seem a lot nicer. I'm not really up for this far left radical progressive agenda. And slowly we're going to start to cause change and influence here at a local level and then right through the rest of the United States of America. So big things coming up, people. The red wave is coming. Don't give up hope. We can easily take all of it back come 2022 and then eventually 2024. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today at You Made It Political. We stream live every morning, 10 a.m. here on Facebook and YouTube. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.